Although I haven't been doing this for very long, I'm always delighted to see a new brand enter the Macedonian market. One of the most recent entrants here is Geely, the parent company of Volvo and Lotus. After quite a long presence in other neighboring markets like Serbia and Croatia, Geely finally entered the Macedonian market, joining the unstoppable force of other Chinese automakers that have entered our shores as well. I say that even though Macedonia doesn't have any shores. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Korrmotive. This is the larger of the two models that the brand launched with, the Atlas Pro. The Geely Atlas Pro, or as it's known in China, the Boyu Pro, and the Azkara in other markets, is one of Geely's older models, and its replacement, the Star Ray, aka the Boyu L, or just the Atlas, is already on its way. I know, but I was on hiatus. Don't be harsh, please. Thank you. As I said previously, this is the larger of the two models that Geely launched with in Macedonia, the other being the Coolray, which I have also driven since then. The Atlas Pro is the larger family SUV offering with an efficient mild hybrid powertrain, standard all-wheel drive, and a lot of equipment. Let's begin, as we normally do, by talking about the design. So I have found myself saying this quite often, but in a sea of bold and even controversial SUV designs, the Atlas Pro's simplistic approach to styling definitely stands out, at least to me. Obviously, you can tell that it's a slightly older model, but it still looks pretty modern. I like its classic SUV shape, its normal-sized grille and headlights that are the right way up, and I like the side profile and the rear end too. All very familiar stuff, but it also has a good amount of presence. The color palette that was available on the Atlas Pro wasn't the most imaginative, but the silver looks nice. Let's start as we normally do now and talk about the cargo area. Opening the hatch reveals a 378-liter cargo area, which matches a lot of C-segment hatchbacks. I'm not exactly sure why it's comparatively small for an SUV like this, but it does still have a good amount of room, and you can, of course, fold the rear seats down to increase the room, and you also get these handy little nets on either side. As for the back seats, well, I am impressed. The driver's seat is in my driving position. If you don't know my stats, I'm 5'11.5" in height, and a Discord moderator in width. And the amount of knee room I had in here is fantastic, and so is headroom actually. I suppose this is the reason why the cargo area is a bit on the smaller side. The rear seats are also heated, and the middle seat has a center console with these, for some reason, shiny piano black cup holders. You also get storage nets in the front seats, but disappointingly, no USB port. Finally, let's step into the front. While the Atlas Pro is not by any means Geely's flagship model, it certainly feels like that in a lot of ways. Let's begin by starting it up. Thanks to the mild hybrid powertrain, as you heard, no starter motor. The engine simply roars to life. The steering wheel is pretty standard. 3 spokes, flat bottom, and multifunctions on the top 2 spokes. It was also pretty soft and nice to hold, if I say so myself. The Atlas Pro distributes power to the wheels via a 7-speed dual-clutch automatic transmission, which you control through this rather intricate electronic shifter in the center. Shifting into reverse activates the 360-degree camera array as well as the parking sensors, and park is selected via the button on the top. Can't believe I just said via and via in the same sentence. Here you can also see some of the shortcuts for various commands that have to be inspired by the Porsche Panamera just a little bit, the OG Porsche Panamera obviously, and also the all-important drive mode selector. We'll tackle that one a little later. Moving on over to the infotainment system. The Atlas Pro's infotainment system has its ups and downs. On one hand, the UI is pleasing and it's all very responsive and fairly easy to use, but it also has some problems. 1, there's grammatical errors like this. And 2, in order to use Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, you must first download an app on your phone that requires you to create an account. I didn't bother with any of that and just streamed my music through regular Bluetooth, and while this sucks, it's important to note that Geely has since sorted this out, and the Coolray includes standard Apple CarPlay and Android Auto without the need for an app. Generally speaking, however, the infotainment system is very well done and pretty accessible, and I also like the power button beside the screen that's shaped like Geely's logo. I would also complain that the volume control is a touch-sensitive slider as you see here, but you do also have the volume control on the steering wheel, so it's not that bad. The gauge cluster is also mostly a screen, with the exception of the fuel and temperature gauges that flank it on either side. While you can configure what's shown in the middle of the screen, the layout and the colors are exclusively tied to the drive modes, with sport mode placing the tachometer front and center, for example. You can also tie the interior ambient lighting to the drive modes as well, or you can configure it yourself. Quality, fit, and finish is very good, not just for a Chinese car, but in general. The interior materials wow, I didn't mess that up, are mostly soft touch, and it feels like the interior has been built to a pretty high standards. There wasn't really anything notably hard or badly made in here, and that's great news, especially for the Chinese car quality naysayers, I guess. Good amount of storage as well, including below the center console, a sizable armrest storage area in the middle, a hidden compartment next to the steering wheel, and good sized door pockets and a good glove box too. Finally, before we get behind the wheel, let's talk about the powertrain. For the short while that the Atlas Pro was available in Macedonia, it was exclusively offered with the mild hybrid powertrain. That means a 1.5-liter turbo 3-cylinder engine with direct injection, helped along by a tiny electric motor, a system that Geely calls Electric Motor Synergy, or EMS, which you can see on various different badging on the car itself. The total output is 177 horsepower, and that goes to all four wheels through the aforementioned 7-speed DCT. This powertrain was developed in collaboration with Volvo, so that should, in theory, stifle any potential reliability concerns. Fun fact, in Macedonia, Geely actually uses the Volvo connection as part of the marketing, and I'm pretty sure it's specifically to stifle any stigma and prejudice about the country of origin. Here's a post from Geely Macedonia social accounts, which I have kindly translated for you. Gotta be honest, fair play to them, it's a great idea. According to Geely, 0 to 100 kph should take around 10 seconds, while the top speed is around 200 kph or about 124 miles an hour. What's it actually like? Let's find out. It's time to take the Atlas Pro for a drive. Let's start with town driving. This is actually a perfect opportunity to explain how the hybrid system works. Despite being called a mild hybrid, in town situations it behaves a lot more like a conventional self-charging hybrid, like you might see on a Toyota or something like that. What that means is when you settle in at a certain speed with the right amount of throttle, the engine cuts out completely and the electric motor takes over. If you floor it, the engine kicks back in, and if you let off the gas and settle back in at a certain speed, the engine backs off again. This does wonders for the fuel consumption, as despite the Atlas Pro being as heavy and as relatively big as it is, I still managed to get around 7 liters per 100 kilometers of driving in town, which converts to this many mpgs. That's pretty good. The one thing I did notice was the throttle response, which was really delayed in eco and normal mode. It definitely took some getting used to for me. What about other scenarios? At highway speeds, the NVH was solid, and so was the stability and the comfort. The only downside is the mirrors, which are so massive that as well as creating wind noise, they create their own blind spot. It's best to slightly look over the mirrors when you're trying to exit a tricky junction, just to be on the safe side, as I had to do on some occasions. Other than that, highway performance was solid, and fuel economy was in the 6 liters region here. As for back roads and twisty stuff, well, I'm not gonna blow smoke up your ass, the Atlas Pro is no sports car, so don't expect it to behave like one. There was a little bit of body roll in the corners, but it was relatively stable. It won't set your pants on fire, but it was perfectly respectable for a family SUV. And something that I want to throw in here as well, the engine, which I only discovered was a 3-cylinder after taking the car out on the highway for the first time, makes a pleasing little noise. 3-cylinder engine notes are definitely one of my weak points, but the Atlas Pro actually impressed. It sounds pretty good, pretty fun. And one last thing I need to mention is that there's a 4th drive mode for off-roading. I didn't really test that out all that much because even though the Atlas Pro comes standard with all-wheel drive, as I said, at least it did in Macedonia, the off-roading shouldn't be anything more than the typical off-roading that most SUVs do anyway. So a little bit of hilly terrain, a little bit of rocky dirt roads and stuff like that you might encounter wherever it is you may be going. The Atlas Pro will do that perfectly fine. Just don't expect it to crawl rocks or do other Jeep Wrangler or Mercedes G-Class activities. But it's good that there's an off-road drive mode and all-wheel drive as standard. So good on Geely for that one. And that's the Geely Atlas Pro. A few minor niggles aside, I was actually pleasantly surprised. I enjoyed my time with the Atlas Pro. It's a solid, well-made, and very competent vehicle that proves Chinese isn't necessarily bad. And I especially enjoyed its normalcy and subtleness compared to some rivals. The Atlas Pro is no longer available in Macedonia at the time of uploading this video, but regardless, a strong start for a new brand. When you consider that this fully loaded one costs around $35,000 new, that's an achievement and a half. Well done, parents of Volvo. The Atlas Pro gets a score of 8.5 out of 10. And now I will pause and wait for my comment section to turn on fire. Thank you so much for watching this video, everybody. If you liked it, be sure to hit like and subscribe to the channel. Also follow me on Twitter. There will be a link in the description as always, and I will see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.